This parsha is a big one. Parshat VAYEITZEI is the next chapter in our family's journey, but it shouldn't feel so smooth. In fact, the translation is often mistaken. I'm looking at a translation that's available, the JPS one that's up on Safaria. The Hebrew is VAYEITZEI Yaakov mi Be'er Shava, Vayelech Harana. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. But it's so important for us to understand that the Hebrew captures so much more than the English can. Right? A very famous literary giant in the Jewish world, rabbi, certainly not a rabbi, Chaim Nachman Bialik, who is the poet laureate of British Mandate Palestine before the State of Israel was founded. He said, learning Torah in translation is like kissing through a veil. And it turns out that that's true. When you look at this parsha, VAYEITZEI Yaakov, it doesn't say Jacob left Beersheba. He was running for his life, if you remember the context. Jacob has just stolen the birthright in last week's parsha from his brother Esav. His brother just promised to kill him. So he didn't leave Beersheba. He ran for his life. After being manipulated by his mother, after deceiving his own father, after being threatened by his brother, all for the purpose of receiving the birthright, he's running. And so the very next verse in translation says, he came upon a certain place. But if you read these Hebrew words with the tone that they deserve, you say, VAYEITZEI Yaakov mi Beersheva, Vayelech Harana, Vayifga b'makom. And Vayifga doesn't mean he came upon a certain place. Vayifga is from the word pega, which means wound. And so he crashed into this place. He was running and running and running, and he crashed. And if you listen closely and you know some Torah, Vayifga b'makom. What's another word for makom? What do we use makom for? God. When someone has a loss, we say hamakom yenachem. And so, to our dear friend Natalie, who just lost her father-in-law, hamakom yenachem. May God comfort you. Makom is a name for God. So now listen to the way the beginning of this parsha sounds in a more maybe clumsy but accurate translation. Jacob ran for his life from Beersheba and set out from Haran, and he crashed into God. And that makes sense. Now we will talk tomorrow about the dream that he had. But please, how we describe that dream, this ladder to heaven with angels up and down. This is exhaustion, divine inspiration. This is crashing into God. And he says, Manora makom hazeh, how intense and amazing this place is. God is here. And I didn't know. I just didn't know. How important it is to know that sometimes we don't know. Blair, I'm so glad you're here. We've been holding up your book and celebrating you. Friends, Blair is here. Give her a mazel tov for this new, beautiful book, Chosen, a life ordained and purposed by God. You should purchase her book. You should give her some love. Blair, I'm celebrating you. Thank you for being such a teacher in our community. So to tie this all up, not in a bow, but in one thematic idea. This parsha, friends, this parsha is about what we do when we've been running. And we don't talk about this often enough, but I hope that we will take a moment now to let it in, not in a way that should paralyze us, but in a way that empowers us to be alive and aware so that we can be healthy. We've been running for just about 3 years. Now, the headlines didn't suddenly become complicated 3 years ago. But 3 years ago, the world did change. And the world feels like it's coming back. I was at a shul 2 Shabbatot ago that was jumping in Cherry Hill. I felt hundreds of voices and harmonies happening again, and hundreds of people coming together physically to learn. And whereas this is such an important thing that we do, we've been running for so long that we might forget. It is an interesting reflection. This platform, these portals into each other's hearts that our screens have been, this has been a place where I've discovered more God than I knew before. Really. but God is also out there. I'll end with a story, and maybe we can use this as a launch into today. There's a famous story about the Chozel Milublin, the seer of Lublin, who the seer of Lublin was famous for not going to school. He didn't like Hebrew school. You might know the type. You might be the type. And he and no one knew where he went. It was very confusing. His mom was concerned. So his mom once followed him into the forest, because that's where he went. He went to school, but then he went left, went to the forest, and she followed him one day because the teachers were concerned. And she saw that he just went into the forest, went into a clearing, was there for a few hours, communing or something, came back. And she confronted him when he came back. She said, "Why did you go to the forest, my son? We've been worried about you." He said, "I went to the forest to look for God." And she laughed and she said, "My son, don't you know? God is here and God is there. God is the same." And he nodded and said, "Mom, you're right. God is here and God is there, and God is the same here and God is the same there. But I'm not." Friends, I want to bless us that while we continue to run, not running from anything, please God, but while our energy has us motivated for Torah and for life, may we pause without crashing and see that God is also there. Maybe we can close our eyes and dream a little dream and feel a little bit stronger and go into today with even more hope. Maybe even feeling that we were chosen for a specific kind of life which is uniquely ours. Bless you, friends. Bless you. Let's have a good day. Bless you, friends. See you tomorrow.